Hey you and welcome, my name is Mike, and in this whole video we're going to look at the story of Ashley McArthur, a former crime scene technician, right, who became the very thing she fought against, if you can believe it. So yeah, pretty dramatic. Back to Pensacola in this one, land of witches if you recall. Taylor Wright was a friend of Ashley's, and when Taylor entrusted some money to Ashley to keep it from her ex during court proceedings, well, Ashley, how about I just keep it? What do you think about that? That's what happened. So, yeah, without further ado, let's do. Ashley McArthur was born in 1977, from Florida, of course, where else? Now, at this point, I could go into, the whole upbringing of Ashley, but, now that you know the smallest bit of information about her, how about we change gears? And by gears, I mean years, to the mighty 2017. In the late summer, early autumn of that year, it was hot, but a woman named Taylor Wright was sweating about something else. That something else being about 100 grand. That wasn't strictly hers. Taylor Wright had gone through a messy divorce, and it wasn't completely settled between her and her husband. His name was Jeff. It's very hard not to do it in the voice. Jeff had custody of their son, and Taylor was supposed to pay for child support and so on and so forth. But that wasn't finalized, and court dates were looming for son. And also, the judge had demanded she put that money back. Taylor and Jeff had lived together in North Carolina. Taylor had been a police officer there. However, once the relationship broke down, Taylor seeked out fresh pastures in Pensacola and was gonna make a new life for herself. And so she did. Taylor became a private investigator, Taylor Wright, PI. She made new friends and began a relationship with a woman named Cassandra. Taylor had just moved in with her, but most of her belongings remained in a moving trailer parked outside. Because at that moment she had, well, frankly, bigger fish to fry than carrying boxes. Namely, that 100 grand in her bank account. See, that 100 grand Taylor had, that was from a joint account, she shared with her ex-husband. She didn't want him to have it, so she just took it. To which the judge said, you better put it back, court dates a common judge's orders. If she didn't put the money back into the account, she would get jail to her. The date was set for the 7th of September, but Taylor pushed that. Something Jeff, he wasn't surprised. She would do things like that often. And so the next date was set for the 12th of September, and this time Taylor didn't push it. She just didn't show up. Show up anywhere. Taylor was missing. Cassandra reported Taylor missing on the 10th of September. But honestly, at that time, nothing really happened. The police didn't think too much of it. If she'd gone missing plus witchcraft, well, then maybe.
There was a potential that it was a ritualistic killing.
On the 11th of September, Cassandra then called a friend of Taylor's, Ashley McArthur. Cassandra called Ashley basically like, here, come over and get Taylor's shit out of here. She was pissed off. She thought Taylor might have just done a legger, just left by herself. The reason for that was about a month and a half prior to, this September time. There, Taylor and Cassandra's relationship had gone through a bit of a rough patch, to be fair. Taylor had cheated on Cassandra, and she had also started using the devil's dandruff, which was not a popular decision with Cassandra at all. Then on the 14th of September, Cassandra went back to the police and was like, okay, she's missing. You might want to have a go.
She has a little boy. His name's Drake. He's with his dad. But she was texting him every day. They would text back and forth. She hasn't communicated with anyone. We're all just puzzled, just befuddled on what has happened to her.
As its 15th day approaches, authorities say the search for Taylor Wright is ongoing, but at this point, they don't suspect foul play.
We've questioned numerous amount of people, and through that investigation, that's why we believe that she left on her own.
Her mother, Nancy Murchison, says friends and family have not heard from her since September 7th.
And she's never done this before?
No. She's never done anything like this before.
Wright's car and all of her personal belongings were left inside a home she lived in with a roommate on Berkeley Drive in Pensacola.
My gut tells me that this is not normal behavior, that she wouldn't do this, and something bad has happened to her.
Now, Ashley was a good friend of Taylor's. They'd known each other for about a year at this point since Taylor moved from North Carolina to Pensacola, but, they were kind of thick as thieves, Ashley would help Taylor out any way she could. And so when Taylor withdrew that $100,000 from the bank account she shared with Jeff, Taylor needed a place to stash the money so that he couldn't get it. She filled out a cashier's check, and through different transfers, she gave $34,000 to Ashley for safekeeping. In August, Ashley even added Taylor to one of her accounts so she could keep the money there, hidden away from Jeff in safety deposit boxes. We all wish we had a friend like that, am I right? No. Ashley was a businesswoman. She worked for her family's company called Pensacola Automatic Amusement Incorporated. The company owned jukeboxes, pool tables, and other different, bar games. She wasn't always solely working for the business, though. In 2001, she enrolled to the University of West Florida, where she earned a degree in forensic science and technology. In 2006, she worked at the Escambia County Sheriff's Office as a crime scene investigator, but that career ended pretty quickly, to be fair. 6 months was all she was doing the CSI. Her back was fucked basically from a car accident, so she went back to the family business full time. She married her husband, Zach MacArthur, in 2014. They had met, he was a police officer at the sheriff's office, so that's how they met. And that's actually how Ashley met Taylor, was through her husband as well. See, at one point, Zach, he changed lanes. He left the sheriff's office, he became a private investigator, and that's how he met Taylor Wright. Also a private investigator, and that's how Ashley and Taylor became BFFs. As the court date in September was gaining on Taylor, she asked Ashley to head to the bank with her so she can regain her money. That was, just resting in Ashley's account. Ashley was busy with business around that time and couldn't go to the bank with Taylor. That's why the first court date was pushed back. So plans were made then between Taylor and Ashley that on the 8th of September, 2017, Ashley would drive over to Taylor's, pick her up, go to the bank. So Ashley came over, she picked up Taylor, and they left. Cassandra was texting Taylor that day. Taylor was very agitated. She was very stressed out. She needed that money. She needed it. So they were texting, and then at about 11:30, the messages stopped. Taylor stopped replying to anything. That's the last anybody heard of her. So then Cassandra, being like, not getting any answer out of her partner, she called Ashley, who she knew, they were together, to ask, where is she? Ashley called her and said that instead of going to the bank, as they were supposed to, Taylor was riding a horse that very moment at a farm outside of Pensacola. Taylor was stressed out. She needed to chill. So Cassandra asked Ashley to tell Taylor to call her once she was done. She didn't. Later on then that day, Ashley then told Cassandra that, after they yelled, they went back to Ashley's, and at 5 p.m, Taylor just was thirsty. She said she wanted to get a drink, she got in an Uber and left. That was it. Soon after this conversation, Cassandra received a text message from Taylor, saying she needed some time for herself and needed to organize her thoughts. Cassandra thought she was leaving her. Ashley was soon brought in to be questioned by police, where she told the police that exact story.
Was Cass there? No, obviously with the minimal interaction, I don't like to, you can draw a conclusion, but she seemed like someone who would ever have any intent to harm Taylor for any reason.
No, she was very quiet. I mean, she may have said hi or whatever, she was very quiet.
Okay. So this whole thing about a safety deposit box of yours, anything about that?
Well, Taylor wanted to get a safety deposit box initially, but she didn't want her name or anything to be on anything that Jeff could find.
How much had she been drinking that day?
She had a Yeti type cup thing full of beer.
I mean, was she intoxicated?
She didn't seem to be. Just trying to help her, and Of course, the story that I get is a very sob story about how Jeff's taken all this money, because I just didn't see her as a bad person. I mean,
She may not be. She may not be.
but maybe I was too naive, whatever. I don't.
Kind of described to me what the mood was like, the conversation was like.
She was fine. She just said that she wanted to go have a beer and that she was going to get an Uber to take her to go have a beer. And I said, well, I can just drop you back off at your car. And she's like, well, I don't want to drive. I went inside, and when I came back out, she had already gone.
Do you know who harmed Taylor?
No, I don't. I don't know that she's been harmed.
Did you harm her?
No, I didn't.
You know if Cass has harmed her?
No. I wouldn't think so. Like, I don't believe Taylor's been harmed. I think Taylor's doing what Taylor does.
Spoiler alert, she was lying like a rug. And so the search for Taylor, continued. The police looked in briefly into Taylor's ex, Jeff, but he was confirmed to be way out of town at that time. But maybe due to money, he might be involved, but he wasn't involved. The detectives went out to different properties to see if they could find a lead. Ashley's family owned a number in the area. They went over to Cassandra's house, and there they found some bits and bobs of Taylor's. One thing was a $19,000 cashier's check. Which was weird. If Taylor disappeared voluntarily, why would she leave, that amount of money? Why wouldn't she take that with her? It's a lot of money, especially for somebody who was dealing with some money issues at that time. On the 19th of October, Ashley was brought into the police station for further questioning. Little did she know that the police had been digging, and they had a couple of facts they were now going to present to her about the story she had told.
We've turned up some things that we don't really know what to think at this point.
Namely, cell phone tower records, which showed Ashley and Taylor at a completely different farm than the one they said they were at, where the horses were, 45 minutes away. A farm which her family happened to own.
Do you know how cell towers work and how phones communicate with cell towers? Okay. There are some discrepancies in what you had told us.
Okay.
Okay. So that you didn't go to Milton when you said you went to Milton.
Let's take that to Milton.
Not when you said you went there.
Oh.
A little bit about Ashley. See, Ashley, was married to Zach, and they supposedly had an open, relationship. While Ashley worked for the family company, one location, Sticks Billiard, became a frequently visited place by her, and not only during her work hours. Ashley and the owner of the place, Brandon, first met when he purchased the business back in August 2016. First of all, relationship was strictly business, jukeboxes and so forth. That didn't last and became a bit more than, She began to pay for supplies for his business, paid the bills a few times, bought him a boat, a motorcycle, 4 AR-15s, 4 revolvers, when one is just not enough. During the summer, she would go there every day. During the summer of 2017, she was obviously head over heels. And as Ashley was in the interrogation room of the police station, a search warrant of a property at 2206 Britt Road was carried out.
So you're the only one that was with her on this day at this farm that you did not disclose to us?
I didn't do anything to
He
her.
said if she's at that farm, we're going to find her because we're executing a search warrant out there right now.
That's fine, but she's not going to be there.
That's where the farm she actually went to was located.
And a tragic update out of Escambia County, Florida tonight. The body of a private investigator missing for more than a month has been found.
One she never told the police about, which was weird as it shared her name, Ashley Britt McArthur. This was the location on which the phones of Taylor and Ashley pinged on the 8th of September. The place where, on the 19th of October, the skeletal remains of Taylor were found in a shallow grave, next to the fence close to a wooded area at the edge of the property. She had been shot in the back of the head. You see, Ashley never had the safety deposit box, that she was putting Taylor's money into. Nope. Taylor's money was long gone by September, by the time Taylor wanted it back. Ashley had been spending it on Brandon by forging Taylor's signature.
Do you know whose signature that is?
That's Taylor's name, but it doesn't really look like her signature.
Would you maybe wrote her name on there by chance?
And as Taylor started to grow more and more stressed about the court date, she asked Ashley about getting her money back more and more. And so Ashley decided to kill Taylor. Shooting Taylor wasn't even her first attempt. She'd previously tried to overdose Taylor by basically giving her a beer that was chock full of cocaine. Taylor spat it out as she was like, oh, this beer is sour. So, next stop, gun.
I think something happened and you're trying to forget about it personally. Okay.
Her relatives lived there and she knew they'd be out as they were attending a funeral. Ashley drove Taylor to the farm where she executed her by shooting her in the head. She later gave the gun to Brandon, who sold it. Ashley wrapped up Taylor in a hammock and moved her to an abandoned area of the property. She then tidied up the area using her knowledge of CSI. The next day, after going to Home Depot, she came back with cement and soil. She would later send messages from Taylor's phone, making it appear as though she was still alive. To Cassandra, to herself even.
This is the day after she was disappeared.
Right.
Her phone is communicating with the tower that covers your house.
Okay.
Not her house, your house. How did you get her phone?
The arrest report says Wright was going through a tough divorce and she trusted her friend and now alleged murderer Ashley McArthur to help her. McArthur was holding $34,000 for Wright, needed for legal costs. When Wright asked for the money back, deputies say she was killed.
Ashley was arrested on the 19th of October. The trial was set for August 2019. Though before the trial could take place, Ashley was found guilty of a separate crime.
2 trials has begun against a former Escambia County crime scene technician. Ashley McArthur has 2 open court cases in Escambia County.
Ashley had skimmed thousands of dollars from jukeboxes her family business rented to local bars. So she just fucking loved stealing money.
The state says Ashley McArthur had a business called Pensacola Automatic Entertainment. They say she had an agreement with the Azalea Lounge where they would split the proceeds of the jukebox 50-50. But they say instead she stole $13,000 and kept all the money in some transactions. They then say she set her business on fire to burn financial records related to that agreement.
In January 2019, a jury convicted Ashley of racketeering and organised fraud and was sentenced to 84 months in state prison, followed by 3 years of probation.
You will see through the evidence and by the end of the trial that Ashley McArthur had the motive, Ashley McArthur had the opportunity, and Ashley McArthur tried to cover it up. And again, I am giving you a very general outline of what this case is about. And as you hear from the witnesses and you see the exhibits and the evidence, it will fill in the detail for you. And at the end of the trial, you will be convinced beyond a reasonable doubt that Ashley McArthur murdered Taylor Wright, and she did it over money.
There is no question that what happened to Taylor Wright is a tragedy. No one in this courtroom is going to dispute that. The evidence will show you that the state's case is built on, yes, lies told by Ashley McArthur, a motive she may have had, things that she did, ways that she lived her life that you may not like. But their case will not be built on eyewitness testimony. It will not be built on physical evidence or scientific evidence. In the end, after you've had an opportunity to get all the evidence and hear the law from Her Honor, we believe that you will have reasonable doubt in this case. And with that, we're going to ask you to turn a verdict of not guilty.
The murder trial started on the 26th of August 2019.
Was law enforcement, did they seem too concerned?
No.
Did there come a time when Miss McArthur was spending money on you personally?
Yes, ma'am.
In approximately August of 2017, did she buy you a motorcycle? Did Miss McArthur also buy you a boat?
Yes, ma'am.
I heard her say about asking Audrey about how much cocaine would it take to kill somebody, and that nobody would think twice about it about her overdosing because she already did cocaine.
Though the defense tried to argue that, the back problem which Ashley suffered during her car accident would have prevented her from moving Taylor's body, And they also argued that the cement and soil purchased by her, the ones she, used to cover up Taylor's body, it was a completely different type of cement. She bought soft, powdery cement, and this was like a rocky, chunky cement.
If the concrete that she purchased isn't the concrete there, they don't have a concrete case.
It was a brave defense.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Ashley McArthur, guilty of first-degree premeditated murder with a firearm as charged in the indictment. So say we all.
All right, then, Ashley McArthur, having been found guilty beyond a reasonable doubt by a jury of your peers of first-degree premeditated murder with a firearm, I am going to adjudicate you guilty. I'm going to sentence you to life with a mandatory minimum 25 years state prison for the firearm.
Ashley McArthur was found guilty of premeditated first-degree murder. She was sentenced to life in prison. And that is the story with that one. Turned out Ashley was just a greedy Gus in the end, you know what I mean? It was a complicated situation, money moving around and the lies and lies Ashley was feeding to the police. I'm curious in these situations, at what point did she say, yep, gonna do this, it'll be worth it? Because it wasn't even that much money, it was like 30 grand. This whole time it's pretty obvious Ashley only cared about one person, herself. Which is fitting because I doubt anybody gives a shit about her now. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. I will see you as always real soon in the next one. Till then, take care of yourselves. Mike out.